The Patriots have added multiple new offensive players as they look to fix one of the worst fantasy offenses from last year. We discussed the top 3 storylines for the New England Patriots entering 2025 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
I hope you all had a blast on the 4th of July weekend. We are going to finish up our 32-team reviews with the New England Patriots today. We saved one of the worst fantasy offenses for last. That's okay because they added new weapons this year, and we have some hope that they can be much better this season with some youth in the building. Before we get started, I want to let everyone know today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so we have some new additions to the Patriots. They drafted TreVeyon Hunderson, the running back, early in the second round this year, but they still have Rhamondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. So what will that backfield look like? Drake Maye's come into his second year. He didn't have a chance to start all too many games last year with Jacoby Myers, him and Maye kind of battling that out, but it's now Maye's team. And then they added some new weapons with Stefon Diggs and Kyle Williams, wide receiver in the third round. So let's get into all of this. Let's start with this backfield because I think that's where it's the most intriguing here when it comes to fantasy production. TreVeyon Hunderson is sitting at running back 26 in the consensus ranks right now. Well, Rhamondre Stevenson's pretty far behind him at running back 37. He was the running back 29 on average last year at 10.6 points per game. What do you view this backfield to look like? Because it's not like Henderson's a big guy. He's only sitting at 5'10", 202 pounds at the combine. Very fast, though, a good receiving back. Do you think Stevenson, I still think Stevenson will be the starter, though, for this team?
Yeah, it's really hard to read what's going on here because of a couple weird factors in this, that their play caller is back to Josh McDaniels, and this is with whom Stevenson had the best success of his career. Granted, it was a different Patriots offense. The offensive line was a little bit better. He was averaging 4.6 and 5 yards per carry, but he's been very inefficient, however, the last couple seasons without McDaniels there. So which one are we going to see? The one that we saw early in his career and the one that got paid big time, by the way? I don't quite understand why he got that extension if they were souring on him, and I could tell that the previous coaching staff was a little bit off on him as well. It's because I think he was inefficient, right? You're a power back. You're supposed to eat up some yards. You're supposed to do a little bit more damage in the pass game. Now, speaking of the passing game, that kind of was the twist on his value early in his career, that he was better than expected as a receiver. But the problem here lies twofold, is Antonio Gibson, who they had last year, was kind of the receiver. And this year, TreVeyon Henderson is a very good receiver. He's a third down type guy. He's a good change of pace. We saw Quinshon Judkins with him. Judkins was kind of the power closer type. And Henderson, I thought, would end up in a different situation. But this is not great at all for Stevenson because, again, I think they do like him quite a bit and what he can do. And keep in mind also throughout the Josh McDaniels year, we also had a James White type, right? Someone who could catch the ball a lot and be the focus of the offense and have a little bit of fantasy appeal. So my concern here is that it's going to be too much of a split here where you're counting a lot on Stevenson for scoring, and he hasn't given you big-time scoring as a power back. Then you're going to look at Henderson and hope that he gets enough balls here in the backfield. But I think inside the Patriots camp, there's a lot of expectation that Henderson is going to really impress them in kind of the training camp preseason setting, right? We've seen it a little bit so far in what they've done in OTAs and minicamp, that he has turned some heads a little bit with what he can do. But I think as we get closer, Michelle, I think I would worry if I'm Rhamondre Stevenson a little bit more. That's why we're seeing the rankings so lopsided so early. Pretty aggressive, if you ask me, to get Henderson almost to RB2 territory without even knowing if he's going to have a full role. But I think he just has so much upside, Michelle, that it makes you say, you don't want to go for Stevenson at all. I mean, he just leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth from how much of a grinding back just to get points he was the last couple of years.
Yeah, it hasn't been pretty since his 2022 breakout season where he was the running back 11 overall. He was running back 31 on average in 2023, running back 29 last year. So his running back 37 rank, I do think is fair, especially considering that Henderson is now there and they spent such an early draft pick on him. I think the side I'm struggling with, right? It's like I'm not interested in drafting Rhamondre Stevenson. It's just, are we interested in drafting TreVeyon Hunderson? Because I still think Stevenson's going to be involved in this offense. He led this team with 207 carries last year in 15 games played. He's still going to get goal line work, I think, too, because like I said, Henderson is a smaller back. Now, Henderson has great acceleration and burst. And I mean, 22% of his carries last year resulted in at least a gain of 10 yards. That was the third best in the FBS last year. And we mentioned he's a good pass catching back. So he can kind of do it all. It's just, I think it's going to be very split. How many rushing opportunities will there be? Like, how good is this offense really going to be? And then how improved is their run blocking, right? Because last year, the Patriots had the worst run blocking grade as a team per PFF, but they drafted Will Campbell really early in the first round. They went that route instead of taking a wide receiver. They added Garrett Bradbury, center in free agency. I mean, he hasn't been great, but they're trying to fix it. And then Morgan Moses, who's been around forever at the other tackle position. So they're working to fix it. It's just we don't know how much better it's going to be next year.
Yeah, there's also a couple other questions. I mean, Drake Maye can take off and run, and we know sometimes when you're a running quarterback, you're going to have a few less checkdowns because that's your checkdown, calling your own number to take off and run. So will that give Henderson a few less catches with which to work and give us less numbers here that we're looking for? So I think it's up in the air right now, but I think to me, the Patriots would lean toward just seeing new stuff, right? Their offense wasn't all that great. That's why they blew it up. They blew it up not only with their offense coordinator, but the scheme, getting the offensive line redone here, different style of philosophy overall on their team, going from Drake Maye to Mike Vrabel. So that could also help Stevenson a little bit get out of the doghouse. But then again, he could be fresh coaching staff, fresh eyes, and they lean toward the rookie that they brought in to be kind of lead back and a star here. So it's kind of interesting that they did this. And you also figure McDaniels was around, so you had probably some input on Stevenson and say, where do we want to go with this with Henderson? So again, I would lean toward Henderson. I'd be a little careful. I wouldn't overdraft him. I think he's okay there if you want to take a shot and swing because he is kind of a home run type pick that he's one of the better lottery tickets out there, but just be careful. Don't overdraft him and just think, I've got an RB2 and I'm just going to set it and forget it with him. It might be he starts out slow, gets a roll, and then you see Stevenson break down a little bit, be ineffective, and then you see gradually where then Henderson takes over, and then Henderson is a big, big factor in the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's hard for me because he's going back to back with Quinshon Judkins, his teammate from Ohio State. Right now, Judkins is going as a running back 25 off the board, Henderson running back 26. And I mean, right now we're expecting both the Browns and the Patriots to be pretty bad offensively, right? Even if the Patriots do improve a bit, they're still not going to be great. So they're both on bad offenses, but Judkins just has such a different competition. I do think Jerome Ford is not going to nearly cut into his workload as much as Henderson, and Judkins just has more of that body to take on a full, workhorse workload. So I'm leaning Judkins here if I had to choose between the two. If I'm drafting them, is that where you lean as well?
Yeah, I mean, essentially then Judkins is in the Nick Chubb role in Cleveland a little bit in the power back, the early work there, and that's going to be more fruitful. Kevin Stefanski also. I think these backs are very talented, but I think the situation definitely favored Judkins with his landing spot over Henderson. Again, you might see it really come to fruition in the second half. Judkins might be producing at that RB2 level a lot earlier in the season just because of where Cleveland's at in the backfield. So I'm excited about both these guys, but again, I think Judkins is a much better pick if you're looking for, okay, I can find an RB2, maybe wire to wire, where with what you're looking with Henderson might be a flex and then develops an RB2 later. So that's something you look at it. Judkins could end up being outscored by Henderson, but Judkins could be more consistent from the beginning with his role. So something to be wary of when you're weighing these rookies, a lot of rookies that are on the board here at running back.
And a big part about if any of these players on the Patriots are going to find fantasy success is how Drake Maye performs in his second year. And he could be a top sleeper pick in drafts. He has the mobility to get you those rushing yards. He has the big arm, but does he have the players around him? Can he be a good fantasy asset? We will dig into all of that right after a quick break. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Gametime app. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. You get to take the guessing work out of buying tickets with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Right now, Drake Maye is ranked as the quarterback 16 in consensus ranks. It's ahead. I mean, it's actually a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be. He's moving up. It's ahead of guys like Jordan Love and CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence. Last year, he was just a quarterback 27 on average as a starter at 14.6 points per game. But that was more than guys like Trevor Lawrence, Stafford, and Stroud in starts. And I will say there's some starts where he just didn't get to play much of the game. So if you just count the games that he had at least 10 pass attempts, that was 10 games last year. He did average 16 and a half points per game in those games. That's about what Justin Herbert averaged last year. A lot more than what Caleb Williams averaged as a rookie last year. And he had 421 rushing yards despite playing just 12 games and really only playing about 10 full games. So we know the mobility's there. He's going to get the rushing yards. It's just what's his passing touchdown potential?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I know he's going to be a bit kind of a loose cheat code quarterback. I mean, he's not going to be what we have with a full cheat code with Justin Fields or Josh Allen, right, in the same division. But he's pretty consistent in terms of his rushing work. I mean, he can get anywhere from 30 to 50 yards per game, have a shot at a touchdown. He's a pretty mobile guy for his size, 6'4", 225. So when you look at Maye, I think, again, there's a lot of things he can do. And I think this McDaniels offense is going to help him. Having that tackle Will Campbell is going to help. He's going to have better protection, being able to throw the ball, spread it around, I think what you'll see. And we'll talk about his receiving core. I mean, that's what our big concern is going forward. I mean, I know they picked up Stefon Diggs, but how much does Diggs have on the other side of 30 with ACL recovery here? So those are the concerns. But again, we've seen it work with quarterbacks. I mean, Daniels, Fields, not having a lot of weapons and still putting up those numbers, right? So I look at, hey, they are going to let him loose a little bit, right, in this McDaniels offense. It's going to be an upside because, again, it's just been proved to be very successful. Now, a lot of it has been Tom Brady over the years, and we can't say the Raiders version of this was all that good, but I think they're going to position Drake Maye to be very successful in what he does. He has a strong arm and can move around well. So I'm excited about it. I just didn't want to pay this much for him at QB 16. It's interesting. Like, okay, if I get him as a QB 12 or he finishes a QB 12, you're getting 4 spots of value. But I was looking for much more sleeper value. That's not to say I don't want to target him in drafts because I think he has a ton of upside, but you're just not getting the big bargain that you might have expected going after Drake Maye because I think a lot of us are on it and can see it happening here, even with concerns about the weapons.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get him in one of the last rounds, but he is going to go, 9th, 10th round. You're going to be able to, like, the players he's going around. I'm actually not too worried about the guys you'd miss out on. I mean, he's going right around Rhamondre Stevenson and Javonte Williams and Michael Pittman Jr. and Cooper Kupp and Jordan Mason, those type of guys. So, like, I don't think you're missing out on anyone like that will be a huge loss to you. It just comes down to, is there other quarterbacks going around him that you would rather have or even going after? And, he's going right ahead of Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. Would you want Drake Maye over all of those guys?
It's kind of funny. Like, I mean, we mentioned Justin Fields when we just broke down the Jets on a previous show that, look, Justin Fields is also pretty good value, but everyone's also inflated because everyone is known for his cheat code. So I think I might try to get a combination of these guys, because if I'm playing the matchup game or playing beyond just the 2 QB leagues and Superflex, where you're looking to toggle the matchups, have some options, and also know that one that you're likely going to have is going to break out, then it's kind of appealing to take a couple of these guys, right, and hope that one breaks out. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of shocking to see him ahead of some of those established people. Because Stroud just was a couple years ago, was up there as a QB1 in the top 12. Jordan Love as well. I think, again, we are a bit of momentum. We're about, what have you done for me lately? Who's the new face? And we feel guilt, or we fall guilty to that in fantasy and in reality a bit, right? Who's the new model? What are we looking at? I mean, that's why we're excited about Caleb Williams and all that. But I think Drake Maye, the talent just says it's going to be an uptick, right? I mean, improved play calling, improved supporting cast, improved blocking. All these things say he's going to be more productive than he was last season. I'm not sure, again, at QB16 how much value you're going to get, but I think he's a worthy guy to still target a lot of leagues right there with Williams and Fields.
Yeah, that's the question, is the quarterback 16 thing. And then, like, so JJ McCarthy is sitting at quarterback 20, and they're in similar situations. Now,
Drake Maye
Drake Maye got to play 10 games last year, or 12 he played in, and JJ McCarthy obviously didn't get to play any. But also with McCarthy, he's in a system that we know makes quarterbacks look much better than maybe they are. McCarthy's also mobile enough. I don't know if he's going to get as many rushing yards as Drake Maye would, but like, if you can get McCarthy a few rounds after Drake Maye, would you rather go that route than taking Maye at quarterback 16?
Well, that's another good combination I might think about too, right? Like, try to put those guys, because then you're pretty confident that one of these guys will really break out and you're in good shape and you've got a very good value at quarterback, where you weren't investing too much early, especially in a 1 QB league. Really, if you go 2 QBs and you end up with those two guys, you could do a lot worse, right? And really help yourself at a few other positions maybe to come back and get those quarterbacks. But yeah, I think they're both good values. I think there's certain entry points. You look at Caleb Williams, you look at Maye, with McCarthy. It's a coincidence a little bit that they're all second-year guys, but Jane Daniels has become expensive. So we need to find some better values there that are from the same draft class that have some upside. So I think a lot of those guys can be successful. I think the arrow's pointing up for those guys. Bo Nix has been inflated by his rookie year, much like Daniels. Like, there was worthy reason for that. But these other guys, I think, target all these second-year quarterbacks at some point in the draft, because they're all in good systems and all have potential to really use their legs to pad their stats.
Yeah, and we were talking about that. He had a handful of really good games, even as a rookie, Drake Maye did, and that was passing to Hunter Henry and DeMario Douglas and Keyshawn Boutte and Austin Hooper. Like, those were his top 4 guys last year. Not a pretty skill player group to be passing to. Now, it still doesn't look great. They added some faces. It's still confusing. There's still a lot to figure out if it's going to be good enough, but we will discuss that to end today's show right after a quick break. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so for the Patriots receivers, there's not many ranked high whatsoever. We have Stefon Diggs as the highest ranked receiver on this team at wide receiver 43. He was the wide receiver 19 on average last year with Houston in a shortened season. Tore his ACL at the end of October. He surprised us in Houston. Can he surprise us here? Will he be ready to go in week 1? These are all questions we have. Then you have Kyle Williams, who they drafted at the top of the 3rd round in this year's draft. He's sitting at the wide receiver 64 in consensus rankings. Demario Douglas, wide receiver 69. He was wide receiver 68 last year, so pretty much ranked around the same place he finished last year. Kayshon Boutte, pretty much did what Demario Douglas did last year. He's wide receiver 69 on average, 1 spot behind Douglas. He's sitting at wide receiver 95 right now. And then, of course, we still have Hunter Henry at tight end 17 in ranks. He was the tight end 17 last year on average. Lots of meh going around here, right? But if you were going to take a shot on one of these guys, who are you going for?
Yeah, it actually might be Hunter Henry, because we do have the thing with Josh McDaniels and going back a little bit to Mac Jones and Hunter Henry having a big year there. They were going to have to rev up that connection a little bit more with Drake Maye, but I'm not going to go crazy for Hunter Henry, right? I'm not going to say, I'm going to target him on all my teams, but I could see his path to real success, because this receiving core is getting really crowded, and it feels like an old Patriots receiving core where they don't really have anyone who can step up. I think Diggs could be okay, but the ACL worries me, just the newness of his introduction on this team. But the funny thing is, I still have confidence in Drake Maye. I'm confident that he's going to get the ball to these guys and spread it around a little bit. The question is, are 2 going to pull away and give us viable fantasy numbers? And I think I could see it for Henry. Everyone else a little bit risky here. I mean, they seem to be we don't even mention yet Mac Hollins and Jalen Polk and some of these other guys they're collecting. Obviously, they're going to cut some of these guys, and the roster is going to be a little bit more streamlined after training camp, but there are just a lot of mouths to feed. There's a lot of crossover in some of these roles as well. So it's very confusing. But I'd say Henry, just because I've seen that kind of combination, young QB, the scoring has been there for Henry. He doesn't have to deal with the same kind of secondary tight end to work with, and then McDaniels as well being there for him. So I think there are some paths to him getting some key targets. But again, he's the only guy I'm looking at maybe as kind of sleeper tight end 1 that I could get in the back half. Now that if some situations are blown up, because it's not great, right? We've talked about tight end after the top 8. It's a little questionable. So Henry could easily sneak in there in the top 10 or top 12 if he can score enough touchdowns. And we've seen him do that before with a young quarterback.
Yeah, we have. And last year, it was not a good year for Hunter Henry. A lot of really bad games in there. Averaged 7 points per game on average last season. Again, tight end 17 on average. But in the 9 full games that he played with Drake Maye, his average did go up to 8.8. He averaged over 7 targets per game in those games. He had at least 11 fantasy points in 4 of those 9 games, at least 9 fantasy points in 6 of those 9 games. And I get that 8.8 fantasy points. I mean, that's more than Zach Ertz averaged last year, who was very usable. That's right under Sam Laporta, right under Travis Kelce last year. So you're right. He could definitely have some value at that low of a cost with Drake Maye there. Stefon Diggs is so hard because he should get a ton of targets if he's there in week 1. And you're getting a great value on him at wide receiver 43 when he was a wide receiver 19 last year. We know he has the talent to be a workhorse, wide receiver where he gets a ton of targets. He surprised us last year with the targets he got in the games with Houston and his production. But it just comes down to, will he be ready to go? But I do think at wide receiver 43, it might be worth the cost if he's not put on the PUP list to start the year. And then Kyle Williams, the rookie, I'm actually very interested in him, especially if Diggs can't go to start, because he is on the smaller side, 5'10", 190 pounds, but was a monster last year at Washington State, put up nearly 1,200 yards and 14 receiving touchdowns. He made up 33% of Washington State's receiving yards. He's great after the catch. He's a good deep target too. He averaged 17 yards per reception last year, gained the 4th most yards after the catch last year as well. So I do think the only reason he went in the 3rd round, top of the 3rd instead of the 2nd, is because the other guys in this class are just it was a big class, right? A lot of big guys out there, and he's the smaller side. But I do think he can be really good in this league. So he does interest me late in drafts.
Yeah, and he was a very hot sleeper in the real draft. And look, the Patriots had the decision early: do we want to force ourselves into the wide receiver run? And then the wide receiver values didn't quite line up, and the certainty didn't come the same way it did with Will Campbell. So they said, okay, we're going to tap into this class. It's pretty deep. There's some good versatile receivers, and I think I look at it, McDaniel's type receiver, Kyle Williams is it. Very solid, can get open in the middle of the field when needed, can stretch it on the outside when needed. He's good after the catch. So you get him in a precision route, and he's going to make something happen there in open field with his quickness. So there's a lot to like about Kyle Williams and the fit of this offense. And again, they prioritized him in the draft where they needed a receiver badly, and he was the first guy they took. Maybe they saw the value in him a little bit. So if Diggs is out or hurting or has a regression here or just a setback with his injury, I think then you could really open the door for Williams that big role because none of these guys have done it, right? They've had the opportunity. Keisha Booty is at it, Jalen Polk. Nobody's really walked through that door to take advantage of it as a rookie or a younger wide receiver. So maybe it's the opportunity here for Williams, pretty golden here to work and get a key role in this offense. So again, go back to some of the habits of McDaniel's, habits of a younger quarterback, and say the slot and tight end could end up being a lot. So just look for Williams, and if he starts to get those key slot snaps, like or the versatile snaps that Julian Edelman used to get in the Patriots offense, then you're really looking like a value, especially in PPR leaning leagues where we're going to look for the volume versus the actual kind of production of yards and touchdowns.
And when you're looking at where Kyle Williams is going, I mean, almost undrafted, but if, at the end of your draft when you're eyeing Jalen McMillan, who has so much competition now in Tampa Bay, or Adam Thielen or Quentin Johnston or Wan'Dale Robinson, like these are the guys you're choosing him over Josh Palmer, DeMario Douglas. Like I would much rather take a shot on Kyle Williams breaking out as a rookie than going with any of those guys. And you're drafting him so late that you don't have to count on him in the first couple of weeks. You can see how he's utilized and see if he's making any impact on this team. And he's already getting really good reviews in camp. So we'll see what happens once they actually put on pads and true training camp, if he's still making noise. But yeah, definitely keeping an eye on him. That will be it for today's show. That's it for all 32 teams. We wrapped up all 32 teams, got through the top 3 storylines for all of them. If you miss any of the teams, just go search on the podcast app or on YouTube. They're all there. We will be back on Wednesday getting into more goodness, fantasy football goodness. We'll talk to you then. Bye, y'all.